was just saying, do you want to flip it?
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another month of Science Saturday. Today, we are somewhere brand new again. This is really exciting because we are going to learn all about coral rescue. Now, you might be thinking, why would you need to rescue a coral? It's wild, right? Well, for that, I am going to introduce my good friend, Logan. Hey, Logan, who are you?
Hi everybody, my name is Logan Williams. I am the Coral Conservation Manager for Coral World Ocean and Reef Initiative Inc., or CORI, which is Coral World's newly formed nonprofit that focuses on conservation and rescue and restoration work.
Awesome. So today we are specifically going to be talking about one coral rescue. So a few weeks ago, we learned that there is some coral on the Frederiksted Pier that we wanted to save, and of course, tell me when I'm saying this incorrectly, but rescue the genes, pretty much, right?
Exactly.
So what does that mean?
All right, so like Kitty said, we did fly over some corals from the Frederiksted Pier a couple weeks back. These species that we collected are very vulnerable and actually quite rare now in the Virgin Islands because of this devastating coral disease called the stony coral tissue loss disease. And since they are so rare, we are now working to collect different individuals with different genes, so genotypes, in the hopes of preserving that species, those populations here in the Virgin Islands, and then also for future breeding, pretty much like sexual propagation work. So we're going to look at breeding these corals so that we can increase their numbers and put them back out in the reef.
That's pretty crazy. You don't really think about breeding coral, but you know, they are, they have to keep on making new coral babies. So that absolutely is something that actually we haven't talked very much about on Science Saturday. So maybe one day we'll do an entire Science Saturday just about coral breeding. That'll be wild. All right, so I was hoping, do we have Matt on the line? Matt, are you there? No? Okay, that's okay. We have our dive team on St. Croix is, surprise, surprise, diving this morning, and we were hoping that he was gonna be able to hop on. So if he does, we'll switch the live over to him and learn the story about the actual dive, but very short version is we had these corals on the pier and wanted to rescue them. And so we had the dive team on St. Croix, which is made up of Leslie from NOAA and Matt from CZM, along with our core representative, Mike. And they went diving at approximately 6 a.m. on the Frederiksted Pier, which you might say, that's crazy. But it was because we had to get everything collected, packed in a cooler, and on the seaplane with me to bring over here to Logan, who then did some crazy stuff. So what happens next?
All right, so once we received those corals, we rushed them back here to Coral World. And pretty much what we did is we acclimated them, so we got them used to their new tank water conditions, especially since these corals were flown in a really crazy method. I thought it's like a moist coral transport. So we got them, they looked great, we acclimated them, we gave them a nice coral dip. So pretty much what that does is it removes a lot of parasites and little bugs that could be hiding in the coral that could affect other corals, and then also it eventually could also cause tissue loss in those corals as well. So we gave them a nice dip, we removed some funky looking stuff, and then we placed them in this water table right here, which is a flow through system. So this water comes right out of Cookie Point. However, because there is that disease, we have a UV sterilizer on it. I'm sure some of you are aware or know what a UV sterilizer is, but pretty much what it does is it makes it really hard for bacteria to populate inside a water tank pretty much. So these guys are just hanging out in here. We come in. Initially what we do is when we brought them in, we did a health assessment. So we measured them, we took their length, width, and height. We gave them nice little IDs so that they have names that we can, when we're doing our health assessments, we can keep track of these individuals. And yeah, we put them in here, and so they're just, for right now, just hanging out and doing pretty well.
So all of these guys are named Fred.
Yes.
Because they're from the Frederiksted Pier. But, you know, still fun. Hey, Fred, how's it going? So here we have our corals.
Yeah, so these are the maize corals, Meandrina meandrites, and these are the ones that are extremely vulnerable to that disease. There's only one individual left that I've seen at Koki, and they used to be quite abundant out there. So these guys really go fast, and so it's a great thing that we were able to remove them before they got that disease. And here's another one if you would like to see. So pretty cool corals, highly susceptible and doing well.
We just got word that Matt is trying to get on, so I'm going to take control for a second. Hey-o. Please enjoy these shady. And hey, Matt. What I'm going to ask you to do is request to go live. I don't know how to do that. We love new technology. Woo. Let's see here. Please excuse us for a second. Let's see if we can get this. I hope I don't finish it. All right. Well, while we're waiting to see if we can get Matt to join the live, let's see here. So, Logan, do you want to talk a little bit about what you're doing right now while we're waiting to see if we can get Matt on?
For sure. So corals, you know, in the water, there's macroalgae, and it grows on the coral skeleton. And if it comes into contact with the living tissue, it can cause an adverse reaction in the coral. The corals don't like the algae. So what we do is we just take a nice little toothbrush, right? And we gently remove that algae from the skeleton and the plugs of these corals to make sure that it doesn't grow into the tissue. So toothbrush is great because it does get rid of the algae, but very similar to like brushing your teeth, you want to get rid of that plaque and stuff, but you don't want to damage your teeth or anything like that. So it's a great little trick that we use to get rid of this. So this is a smaller one of the corals that we rescued. It's Meandrina.
All right, looks like we're bringing Matt on. Oh, Matt says you can't come on camera. Oh man, let's try this again. We're gonna like that. Oh, Matt says you're not allowed. Well, that's okay. Matt is currently on site, actually at, I think, diving at Cane Bay this morning. Out to treat some corals.
And so we got the maize corals, but we also got some pillar corals from the Frederiksted Pier. So as you can see right here, this is one of those corals.
Very cool.
And you can see some of the polyps are out over here. So that's actually the living part of the coral. And this is a coral colony. So each coral colony is built up of a lot, like, you know, dozens to hundreds of these little animals called polyps. They're related to jellyfish, and so they do have stinging cells like jellyfish do. However, they don't sting us, but they use those stinging cells to capture plankton from the water column, especially at night. But this species right here has their polyps out a lot of the daytime.
And you have some other of the same species in this tank,
we
right?
We do, yes.
So I think that the difference is really cool. So looking at this guy, he's kind of flat, right?
Because this thing is flat?
No, that's not connected at all. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so we are talking about the difference between this guy.
Yeah, so like Kitty was saying, it's very flat. Actually the same with the Meandrina as well. They're very flat and very dark, and that's because they were growing underneath the Frederiksted Pier and therefore didn't get as much direct sunlight as other corals would, and so they are darker in color and flatter in shape.
Now, if we go over in the rescue table into the sunlight, we've got this guy, which people now might recognize as the pillar coral.
Yes.
Which is the same guy.
It is.
Well, not the same guy. He didn't come from the pier, right?
Right.
No. But the
They did not.
same species.
Same species. And these corals, they're actually related to the mace corals, and they are also highly susceptible to that stony coral tissue loss disease. So we've got quite a few genotypes in here, actually, which is very exciting.
So what does that mean, having different genotypes?
So just like we were talking about, we were trying to preserve genes, right? The genetic diversity. So each individual has a different set of genes. And so corals from different genotypes come from different colonies, or they're different from one another. They're not identical. They're
so
not
like
clones.
different families. Big family units.
Right, or like you have different genes than even your sister, right? So because you're a different person. Now, if you had a clone or a twin, if you're a twin, for example, your genes would be identical, an identical twin. So
super cool.
These guys are all different from one another.
Okay. Very cool. I like how this one looks like he's got little hats on from his polyps out.
And so these corals have fairly large polyps, these pillar corals, and so in the evening we feed them the way people will feed their fish. Yeah, in their fish tanks.
All right.
Yeah, so we'll mix up some coral food. We'll take a little syringe, kind of scatter it in the water to get them ready to go, and you'll see it's very, very cool. So in the daytime, these polyps kind of look, they're long and thin, right? They just look like little kind of strings, I guess, or hair, I guess you could say. But when you start feeding them, they'll open up and you'll actually start to see the mouth. It's really cool. So then you can take a little squirt of that food, and their tentacles, you'll see them kind of grab in like this and hold on to it. And that's how you know that they're actively feeding. So it's very cool. Yeah.
We've got a question from the audience. Our favorite scientist, Joe, who I think is just jealous that he's not with us today up in the snowy states. He wants to know how many corals were transported. From this last one, from the Frederickstead
So
Pier.
we had we had 5 meandrinas and then the one pillar coral.
Awesome. Very cool. And these two are really big.
Yes, they're quite large.
So those were just, very carefully and strategically chipped off of the pier and transported. You talked a little bit about the wet transport, how they were wrapped up in wet paper towel and bubble wrap.
Yes.
And then those actually went on the seaplane with me. I walked on with a cooler. I'm probably the only government employee who transports live coral back and forth in a cooler. In the coral cooler. Really fun. Very interesting.
Yeah, I was very, you don't think that corals could do very well in that type of transport, but they did great, so.
Awesome. So what kind of stuff are you going to do with them while they're here?
For right now, right now they're kind of still getting used to their environment, but we're hoping to pretty much multiply them, propagate them asexually. So we frag them pretty much, and so you can cut them up into smaller pieces, and those individual pieces will grow and they can get large. And then what you can do is you can fuse them together to make one larger colony, or you can just make a lot of identical clones from the same individual.
Cool. And for you guys watching who are Science Saturday diehards, we did fragging with Lisa on St. Croix, Lisa Terry at the Nature Conservancy a few months ago, a year ago, I don't know. I have no concept of time, but that's super cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to turn around because my phone is overheating. So we're going to trade places, and I'm going to see if I can get the phone in the shade. And we still got a decent shot. All right, so as you're fragging, as you're keeping these guys, you're collecting data on everything, right?
Yes.
So what does that look like? What kind of data are you collecting?
So this is actually our sheets, that our daily coral assessment sheets that we do. And so basically the first column right here is just the coral ID. So we give them that name, right? So Fred from the Frederickstead Pier, the species, the number, the individual replicate number, so like the individual coral that we collected, And then if it's a fragment, we'll give it a letter. We do, write down the date, the tank it's in, its health status, whether it's getting treatment or anything like that. And then pretty much just looking at mortality and bleaching and paling. And we also, like I said, we take measurements of the sizes of these corals when we bring them in. And so just use a ruler and you measure the length, width, and height.
Ooh.
So pretty much like say this is a coral, measure it like that.
Can we measure a coral?
Sure.
Cool. Real science.
All right. So we'll take this guy right here. Don't want to stress him out too much.
All right.
So take the longest length, right? So we collect that data. So what is this? It's about 27.
And that's centimeters.
Yes, centimeters. And then perpendicular to that would be 26. And then the height's kind of tricky. Don't want to hurt him.
All right.
So the height, pretty much, we would just take the perpendicular to the
Okay.
length and the width.
And guys, notice how careful Logan is being with the coral. We, rescued them, want to make sure that they are living the ultra spa life, little doctor appointments every once in a while, but they want to stay healthy and happy and well taken care of.
Yeah, we try not to handle them too much in here. When we do, we wear gloves. And then, of course, if you guys are out there snorkeling and diving, you do not want to be touching corals. They do not like it.
Right.
It can stress them out.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my themes in Science Saturday is we always come back to why the work that you are doing is important, generally, obviously, but the implications to climate change and, the protection of the environment. So what are these guys doing for us?
So coral reefs are extremely important, not just for the marine life that live here in our waters in the Virgin Islands, but also for people. They provide millions of dollars worth of free goods and services to Virgin Islanders, just Virgin Islanders alone each year. And so those goods and services include, tourism for one, right? A lot of our tourism revenue comes from people who want to see really pretty corals. And when you have healthy reefs, you have a healthy fish population, and they want to see that as well. They're also really, and this is really important for climate change, they protect our coastlines. Right. So coral reefs reduce about, 97% of the wave energy. This is really important during hurricanes or, large storm events where there's that storm surge, right? And a lot of our residential and business industry, right, is on the coastline, and so they're very vulnerable to not just that storm surge, but then when you combine that with climate change, which is supposed to increase our sea level, right? Mm-hmm. Those two factors together are not great, and so coral reefs are really important. They reduce that energy. Like if you go to the beach, you see the waves breaking. It's not breaking right on the shore, right? It's breaking out there on the reef, and so by the time it gets to the shore, it's just a tiny little wave. It's not a big deal. And so if these coral reefs, they die, right? So reefs, corals over thousands of years, millions of years, grow up on top of each other and they'll die, right? But then new corals will come and they'll settle and they'll grow. And as long as there is a living layer of coral on that reef, the reef will continue to grow up. However, in the past 50 years, we've lost a lot of our corals. And so now we'll probably start to see in the future some erosion occurring on those reefs. And that's not great for us, right? Because they do provide such a great buffer.
Right.
They protect our coastlines from that storm surge.
So you hear a lot of people within the coral and environmental world talking about reef building species.
Yes.
So those are these guys, right? They're big, they're solid, they're ready to protect us, they are building up that structure.
Exactly. And then the pillar coral is just a really cool coral. It's the only species of that genus that we have here in the Caribbean, and they were already vulnerable to other stressors before this disease, but ever since this disease has come here and also in Florida and throughout the Caribbean, their populations have declined significantly, and so we really want to preserve that species for our reefs, to protect us, but then also, just to preserve that species diversity so people get to see them in the future.
Very cool. So we're talking about a lot of best case scenario here in the tanks. You know, so you said that they were getting fresh water right up from the ocean that goes through the UV sterilizer. But people get sick, and so do corals.
Yes.
So what happens if one of these guys starts stressing?
So when the corals start stressing, you know, we do those health assessments, so we keep an eye on them. What we'll do is if they'll start to lose tissue, we automatically remove that lesion, right, that area of disease. And then, you know, we'll give it a day pretty much to assess it, make sure it's doing okay. And if not, then we'll start treating them. And so when we treat them, what we do is we actually treat them with amoxicillin. So it's an antibiotic that you would probably take if you had like a toothache or something like that, or an ear infection.
So another flashback to a previous Science Saturday. I think it was last March. We talked to Mike at Core, and he taught us all about amoxicillin.
Oh, wow.
Actually.
Great.
So if you guys missed that one, go back in the videos and check it out. Mike knows everything about amoxicillin, as was proven in that Science Saturday. So yeah, you're pretty much, you know, treating them like a doctor.
Yeah, exactly.
Coral doctor. Woo!
Yeah, so and then we'll treat them for about 10 days if that ends up being the case, and then they go through a quarantine period to make sure that they're okay, and then once they're stable again, then, you know, they can go back into the other tanks with the other corals. So.
Very cool. So even if they're having a bad day, we're here to take care of them and bring them back to health.
Yes, we do whatever we can to try to help these guys.
Although
so.
the immediate amputation sounds a little rough.
Yeah.
If I were a coral, I might be hiding my hand injury. I don't know. All right, very cool. Well, Logan, is there anything else that you want the audience to know about what you guys are doing here at Quarry? Protection of corals? Lay it on us.
All right, yeah, so Quarry is very new. We're just getting established as a nonprofit, but you can always go and check out our website to learn more about the work we're doing, and then stay tuned because actually Coral World, where Quarry is located, is going to be expanding our coral nursery system quite a bit in the next few months. So
Ooh.
it's very exciting work.
And I heard that you guys are going to be hiring too.
Yes, yes.
So Coral Nerds Unite. We got some jobs coming up. That's exciting. So all of you who are watching and are like, I want to spend my days taking care of coral. It is actually a job opportunity.
Yes.
So keep an eye out. And for those of you who are too young to do that right now, you know, have faith. These are jobs that exist out in the world and will continue to exist as long as we have coral.
Yes. And
so protect the coral.
Yeah, protect the corals. And then, of course, you know, we'll be looking at volunteers too. So if you're interested in that type of stuff, you know, just stay tuned.
Awesome. Very cool. And any final words on just protecting the coral? What do you want us to do or not do?
Oh, yeah. So like I said, corals are really important for us here in the Virgin Islands. So like I said earlier, do not touch corals when you're out snorkeling. Don't stand on corals. That can really damage them. If you boat, if you go around and, you know, try not to drop anchors if you can and grab a mooring. However, if you have to drop an anchor, you know, make sure it's in a sandy area and nowhere near the coral reef. You don't want to damage those corals there. And then, of course, you know, with everything, try to reduce the amount of your carbon footprint pretty much, right? So, and then try to, you know, reduce the amount of plastics, single-use plastics that you're using.
All right. Awesome. Flip around to the other camera. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. It is a beautiful day. Go out and enjoy the beach, you know, do some fun environmental activities, maybe do a beach cleanup with the family, and protect those corals. Protect the corals because we said so. All right, have a beautiful day. See you next month. Bye.